Hey there YouTube, I'm Bubbins, and free companies can be one of the biggest money sinks in all of Final Fantasy XIV. But they're also incredibly lucrative to the point where they can simply print up to 566,000 gil per day. That's nearly 4 million gil a week, 17 million a month, and 207 million per year. It, of course, takes a long time to get to that point, but reach this fabled mark and you'll be printing more money than you know what to do with. In this video, I want to explain how all of this works. The sub and airship community uses a ton of spreadsheets and jargon that could honestly use a better explanation in simpler terms. This is straight from the Discord community, and I mean, look at this, or this, or this. Just really hard to parse without a ton of additional reading and context. So if you're interested in learning how to get started, what the best way to level your subs are, which parts you should be aiming for, and what nodes to farm, I'll cover that all right here. But before I get into the nitty-gritty, if you're here for just the answer and don't particularly care about how to do it yourself, here's a TLDR. There are 4 nodes that subs can visit that return extravagant salvaged accessories. These can be sold to vendors for large sums of gil, and don't even require you to interact with the market board or your retainers. It's just gil straight into your pocket. Each of these locations has a name and a letter that is assigned to them. They are Unidentified Derelict J, the Wreckage of Discovery 1 O, Concealed Bay R, and the Wreckage of the Headway Z. Like I said, on average, you'll get 566,000 gil per day, but that varies a lot too. With 4 subs, Polar Thief, who has tracked a lot of their journeys, has gotten as low as 265,000 in one day and as high as 1.7 million. So that's the gist of it. But here's how to do it yourself. So if you don't want to just join a random FC that's already max rank and has all this stuff where you have to share all of the loot, you'll first need to found an FC. And that's honestly super easy to do with just 2 people. Step 1, be rank 25. Step 2, speak with the OIC administrator in Limsa, Gridania, or Ul'dah. Step 3, fill out your free company details. And then step 4, acquire 3 signatures to found the FC. Now, interestingly, you can't do this by yourself. You need at least 1 friend. All you need to do is invite your friend, have them accept, and then you can either invite their alts or have them invite your alts, which easily helps you get 3 signatures. Now, the question I always get is, can you do this with only 2 people? And the answer is yes. This is a time and money sink. It will go faster with more people if you're building all the ship parts yourself. But if you have the gil to burn, you can either buy all the materials you need, assuming your crafters are a high enough level, or buy the parts outright from the market board. Either way, it's entirely possible. It's how I've done this entire thing. Granted, I am still like a month away from having this running for myself. So let's start explaining some things. There are 5 different submersible maps. You start off on the deep sea site and explore from there, progressing linearly through them. Thankfully, almost all of the consistent money making happens on that first map, making this process so much easier than it would have been otherwise, and that's the one we're going to focus on today. You don't really need to worry about the other ones. So, you may have noticed when you first start, you only have 1 node. You will need to progress from node to node, discovering new paths during each journey. Keep in mind that whether or not you discover a new node is completely random. It may take 1 trip if you're lucky, or it may take 50 if you have really bad luck. This is easily the biggest time gate when it comes to subs. Leveling is pretty quick if you have all of the best nodes unlocked, but when you're stuck grinding nodes that are below your level, it can take a really long time. While you only need specific nodes for this method, my personal recommendation is to unlock them all. Keep pushing forward as higher nodes reward more XP for the same amount of time. Pushing into the Sea of Ash doubled the amount of XP I was earning per minute. When discovering, you'll also need to make sure to visit 3 sectors to unlock the additional sub-slots. They are Unidentified Derelict J, the Wreckage of Discovery O, and Purgatory T. It's a pretty significant investment to outfit 4 full submarines with shark parts, but the sooner you start leveling them, the sooner you'll start making all of that money. Speaking of parts, let's explain how the community talks about these parts. There are a lot of different subparts, and each has different stats, and all of them come in regular and modified versions. Modified versions are better, obviously, but for a lot of folks, you can ignore these until you're much further along. So looking at charts like this, you'll see things like WSUC, or SSUC++, or SSUW. This is all shorthand for the various parts. S is shark, U is uncu, W is whale, C is coelacanth, Y is sildra. Anything with a single plus is equal to the modified version of that specific part. Anything with plus plus means the entire thing is modified. So for example, SS plus U plus W, it's on screen, sorry, it's hard to read, would mean the second and third parts are modified, but not the first and last. SSUC++ would mean a modified shark pressure hull, a modified shark stern, a modified uncu bow, and a modified coelacanth bridge. Modified parts are much more expensive, as I said. For example, the regular shark class bow currently starts at 504,000 gil. The modified version, however, is 1.9 million. The coelacanth bridge, on the other hand, is normally 1.2 million, but the modified is 2.5. So which parts do you really need? If you're looking to do this as cheaply as possible, you don't actually need all that many parts. The stats of your ship don't affect anything other than the items it returns with. So if you're just focused on leveling and only care about XP and unlocking nodes, you're entirely free to keep those shark class parts all the way up to level 85. Obviously, you can speed things up by upgrading your sub speed stat, but that's not something that's a big priority unless you're really swimming in cash. So the parts we need are shark for all 4 slots on all 4 subs. Use those all the way up until level 85. At 85, we will swap to WSUC, and you may ask yourself, why not just get those right away? Well, first of all, I don't recommend it, because at rank 50, the default 4S parts have 110 speed and 70 range. At rank 50, WSUC has 150 speed and 15 range. That specific loadout is optimized to farm 2 very specific nodes and isn't good for unlocking more nodes or leveling. Basically, stick to the default stuff until you get to the point where you're ready to farm specific nodes. And then at 101, we swap to SSUC++. So those are the only parts you need, right? So it's 16 shark parts to begin with, 12 at rank 85, because we keep that 1 shark part, and then at 101, completely new parts. The age-old question is whether you should build or you should buy. While you're leveling, you'll undoubtedly get some of the materials you need to unlock crafting for at least some of the parts. However, I wouldn't go out of my way to farm those materials to unlock them. If you happen to have access to those crafting pieces by the time you get to rank 85, great. You can usually save a couple 100,000 gil by purchasing the materials and crafting it instead of buying it outright. But ultimately, it depends on how much gil you have and how much you value your time. Sometimes I'd rather pay an extra 300,000 gil than travel around trying to get the final materials as cheaply as possible. And obviously, if you don't have access to crafting the parts, you're going to need to shell out the cash, unless you want to pause everything and try and get the materials. But keep in mind, you may not be able to get them unless you upgrade from the SSSS. It's too many S's. But keep in mind, you may not be able to get some unless you upgrade your parts, which kind of throws away the cash you would have saved anyway. When it comes to repairing, that's easy. Either buy Magitech repair materials from the market board, a full stack usually goes for around 285,000 gil, or make them yourself if you have a level 50 crafter. It's just 1 dark matter and 5 grade 6 repair materials, the latter of which you can get from any junk monger for 120 gil each. Even if you just buy the clusters from the market board, you can get a full stack for something like 130,000 gil instead if you're really trying to be frugal. When it comes to leveling, do yourself a favor and just use Mogship. Go to the XP calculator, put in your rank, and it will spit out the best route for you to take. There's technically a more efficient way to do this, which worries about making sure the time you deploy your ship never drifts earlier or later to help reduce the amount of time the ship is just waiting to be sent out again. But honestly, I don't worry about all that. As you can see, at level 20, you're getting about 200 XP a minute. At 50, that's up to nearly 600, and by 60, which is the next map, nearly 750. Do keep in mind that getting to rank 85 takes a whopping 69,500,000 XP. Even with all of the nodes unlocked, leveling takes at a minimum 90 days, and that's with an extremely optimized plan that includes buying optimal parts for each stage. For the average person, leveling one ship takes 4 to 5 months, again at a minimum. If you account for unlocking nodes for the first time, you're looking at like 6 to 8 months. This is an extremely long-term project, especially for small teams, but the rewards are there if you're patient. So, back to the charts and spreadsheets. You'll often see the letters OJ as some kind of benchmark, with everything measured as a percentage compared to it. The reason for this is simple. OJ is basically the best 24-hour long route, making it a very good measuring point. With the right ship, you can get 114,000 gil per sub per 24 hours, so the community uses this as a measuring stick. For example, when they try to figure out if MOJ was better or not, this 36-hour trip is longer, so the rewards need to be higher than that aforementioned 114k gil. When they gathered all of the data, it came out to 93,000 gil per sub per day, so the route is about 82% of OJ. That's how they compare these things. It's also one of the first available routes that doesn't require the very expensive modified parts, meaning it's a great place for people to start earning lots of gil, to the tune of 457k per day, which is like 13.7 million per month and 167 million per year, assuming you have all 4 subs out farming it. And as I mentioned earlier, you want to use WSUC for this farm. Eventually, people like to upgrade to JORZ, but one thing to keep in mind is that it takes about 143 million XP to go from rank 85 to rank 101. Assuming you are only farming OJ, with that WSUC build and assuming you're leveling only by farming OJ over and over, this will take you 378 trips. And with those taking about 24 hours, that means you won't upgrade to JORZ for a full calendar year. This is currently the highest possible income per 24 hours at 123% of OJ, or 141,000 gil per sub per day. Assuming you have all 4 subs going out at once, that's the aforementioned 566,000 gil per day in your pocket that I mentioned at the start of the video. That is the most you can possibly earn using subs without having to interact with the market board. Basically, it's an extra 100,000 gil per day on average. Those modified parts are expensive obviously, so it'll take a while to recoup that investment, but the difference is about 3 million gil per month or 39 million gil per year. Given that it takes a full year to unlock and it's only 3 million gil a month, don't feel too bad about being stuck on OJ. OJ is really good, and this is just the ultimate long-term goal to squeeze out some extra cash. An interesting thing to note is that as Square Enix keeps updating the submarine system, the stats are slowly improving over time. The current max speed is 235, but once it hits 245, which looks like it will happen during the next expansion, we should theoretically be able to hit almost 140% of OJ using MROJZ to the tune of 159,000 gil per sub per day. That's only an extra 18k per day, but it adds up to 70,000 total, which is roughly an extra 20 million gil a year. Just interesting that the number will keep climbing. So, that was a lot. To recap, Step 1, unlock an FC. Step 2, build a sub. Keep sending it out ASAP to unlock zones, get more subs, build those as you unlock them. Keep exploring, push on to the next map if you get that far. When you finally hit rank 85, upgrade to WSUC and start farming OJ. Then, a full calendar year later, when you are 101, upgrade to SSUC++ and start farming JORZ. That's it. That's how you do it. It takes like a year and a half to 2 years to do this. Assuming you're just like an average person and not like super incredibly optimized. But you get lots and lots of money per month and with no real effort on your part. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to leave a like or subscribe. As a small channel, it really does make all of the difference. And if you want to directly support the channel, there's a Patreon linked in the description below. For now though, this video has been long enough. I think that's it. I'll see you next time.